Everyone, we've been talking about the Advanced Player's Guide for Savage Worlds Pathfinder Class Edges. Now, that's a mouthful, and there's a lot of really good stuff to find in this book. Like I said, the Advanced Player's Guide for Savage Worlds Pathfinder. And we looked at the Cavalier, we looked at Inquisitor, and now we're going to look at a very interesting class edge, the Oracle. Hey everyone, it's Carl with Eric. There he is. We're Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles. Yes, Eric, I'm talking about looking at the bubbles, doing the stuff.
I don't know what to do with the bubbles.
I want you to support, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'd really appreciate it. But tonight, we are going through another class edge that's in the Advanced Player's Guide. APG, because I'm tired of already saying it. So it's in the APG. Yeah. Lots of really good stuff there. And we're going to talk about the Oracle. And hopefully you'll get something out of it, and we'll deep dive into it. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Eric, to start talking about the Oracle and any baseline stuff you wanted to bring into the conversation. So take it away.
Yeah, so the Oracle is a Pathfinder 1E class, obviously. Pretty strong in 1E, not that good in 2E. I think they're definitely improving it, but right now it's one of the worst, like, mechanically designed classes in 2E. But it's extremely flavorful and kind of an interesting twist on a divine caster. So the flavor of it basically is you have somebody who kind of has a backdoor into celestial energy. They kind of can have a direct connection to a theme that, like, gods and goddesses draw from. And it's all linked to a certain theme, like life or flame, that like a bunch of gods would draw from. But because they're mortals, this like extreme celestial energy that's going right into their brain, it kind of has burned them in some way, or they kind of have like negative feedback from it. And that manifests in the form of a curse that they suffer. And so in 1E, it's much more customizable. In 2E, it's not as customizable, but obviously this is based on 1E. So you're able to choose both your curse and your mystery, it's called, which is the theme. And we'll get into that when we actually talk about the class. But it's a very customizable flavor. You don't just pick one thing and go with it. You actually get to pick two things. So unlike the Sorcerer, I would say Sorcerer is probably like the other kind of closest in feeling of like flavor to it, where you can pick your bloodline. Yeah. This has kind of like two things you can pick from. So yeah, extremely flavorful and interesting.
Very cool. So should we get right into the capabilities that come in with the novice requirements for the Oracle?
Yes, absolutely. So just at the top, we have a novice in spirit D6, so a pretty low threshold for requirements. So oracles start with faith, so similar to the cleric and the druid. They have 15 power points, and they start with 2 powers from the list below. Now, this is not actually true. They're actually going to start with 4 powers, but we'll talk about that in a second. But they start with 15 power points and 4 powers. So this is actually the biggest in the game as far as combination of power points and powers. It's huge. They start with a lot of stuff. Their power list isn't huge. I would give this like a medium range. It's kind of similar to, I think the cleric and druid have a little bit more. And it's a very diverse power list. It's kind of missing most of the damage options, and it's missing most of the mobility options. It has like 1 mobile power and 1 damage power, but otherwise it has like all the healing stuff. It has some debuff, some control power. So it's a good mix again with a little bit of summon. But as you'll see with the mysteries, you kind of can expand your power range a lot. It has the armor interference medium. So the cleric has no armor interference, but after that, all the other I think most of the other casters have light or any. So this one is kind of beefier. And really, even with the cleric, like, you're a caster, you're probably not going to have strength of a D10 or whatever, or like strength of a D8 in Brawny. So medium seems like it's still not much of a hindrance. Carl, like that's still pretty good to have medium, right? That's probably is like at the top of an actual caster is going to be anyways.
Yeah, I agree.
And then finally, they choose their curse and they choose their mystery. Their curse is going to be, it's not just a drawback. It's going to be a boon and a bane. And generally,
it's kind of got a yin and yang to it.
Yeah, you're a little give and take. And I think generally they're pretty much balanced, like they're supposed to be. It's not perfect balance, but they're pretty much balanced. So that's kind of like a wash as far as the curse goes. And then the mystery will gives them access to 4 powers. And also gives them access to a special ability with those powers, and it gives them access to a special ability itself. So we'll get into that. So when you choose your mystery, you choose one of them, and then there's going to be like 4 or 5 powers, and you choose 2 of those. So that's like when I said at the top is that you get to choose total of 4 powers. And some of the mystery ones like will be powers that you don't have access to in the base list. And some of the mystery powers will be like veteran or seasoned powers. And there's even one heroic power in there. So they're kind of one of the only ones that can get access to extremely higher level powers at novice, which makes it pretty powerful. So, Carl, all in all, when we actually do the points, and again, Savage Worlds is not about perfect balance, but we can pretty much, there is like a point system because everything kind of goes back to, in my mind, goes back to kind of, when you're talking about weighing things, like mechanically, it goes back to, we have the whole ancestry or race creation tables in normal Suede. And those can give us a good basis for how many points go, as far as, and also advances. So when we're looking at it here, right, normally in arcane background would be 15 power points and you choose 1 power. That's like normal baseline for Suede. In Savage Pathfinder, it's a little bit beefier, but that's like normal, right? It's actually even worse when you choose magic or you choose faith. It's even more of a bane because you actually get a hindrance too, just for your normal stuff. But kind of normal is 15 power points and 1 power. And then you would get 10 power points or 3 powers. This has 15 power points and 4 powers, right? So we're already talking about as far as like point wise, we're talking about like, I don't know, 4.5, right? Because it's like 15 power points and then 3 powers would be a 4-point power edge, a 4-point edge, and then an extra power will be 0.5. So we're talking about a 4.5. Are you with me here, Carl? A 4.5. Hope everybody else is. 4.5 kind of points. Armor interference is a major hindrance. That's worth a -2. So we're down to 2.5. Again, I said a curse is pretty much a wash.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then mystery. So we're looking at like I said, it's stronger. It's pretty strong for initial power edge. I think I did all that math right.
Right. I think so. Yes, I think so.
Yeah, 15. Yeah, 4.5. Why? I thought for some reason I thought it was like a 4. Anyways, I don't know. So it's definitely stronger. It's up there with like monk. It's up there with druid. It's up there with sorcerer as far as like a very, very strong starting edge. So yeah, I talked a lot there, Carl. Anything to say about the initial impressions?
Well, I mean, the fact that you can, the bottom line is I'm totally with the fact that you can have 4 plus 15 power points at the beginning, and some of those technically could be higher than novice powers too. I mean, that's really nice. And I guess I wasn't, as far as available powers, I wasn't so negative because there's support powers. There is the 1 damaging power, so, everything for burst is that everything's going to be a hammer and nail with burst, but at least you do have access to kind of be a little well-rounded. So I thought that wasn't necessarily negative. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not. I was just saying, like, compared to some of the other casters, it's a little bit of a small list. But even like I said, like that burst is the only kind of offensive power on there. But as we'll see, the mysteries, one of them get access to bolt, one of them get access to blast, one of them get access to damage field. So you can basically it's one of the, I think, the best feeling casters just from the get. You're just getting the most power points you can get. You're getting the most powers from the get. You can have like up to medium armor interference, and you get like some cool flavorful abilities. So just from like I said, just from the get. This also makes it really, really good for multi-classing. Because, usually when you're looking at like Gish multi-classing builds, as far as Savage Pathfinder goes, Monk is kind of the go-to because, they don't have to wear armor. And so it meshes really well with things like the Sorcerer or with the Wizard, things like that. I mean, Cleric's also a good one, but Oracle's just as good as Cleric here because it has that medium interference. So it's really good with like, if you want to do Ranger or with Inquisitor, right? Or with like, so it meshes very well as that too. So it's a really cool, and I said very flavorful because you get to choose your curses and mysteries. Yeah, okay.
And there's a good long list. So yeah, we'll get into that.
Moving on to the seasoned edge, we have Revelation, where as a limited free action, the Oracle can cast one of the powers she knows from her mysteries. So this is huge. Unlike Suede, Savage Pathfinder did not include I think it's called the Hasty mod, which allowed you for 2 power points, allowed you to cast any power as a limited free action, which was gigantic for Suede, right? That's a game changer for Suede for both people who want to dip and be a Gish or people who want to be like normal arcane casters. Having the flexibility of having a power as a free action is humongous. And here, that's regulated to mystic powers. And then we see that, Oracle gets it, Witch can get it, and I think that's it. I mean, that's the only casters. I don't even think alchemists can get it. So you're really only looking at. There's some new powers for some sorcerer and witch, but I don't think anybody else got it. Yeah. So we're looking at witch and oracle here that have access to a free action cast besides mystic powers, and oracles can actually have 4 powers or 5 powers, which is huge because when you choose your mystery, right, you choose 2 powers from the available power list.
Right.
But the revelation isn't saying you can only cast those 2 powers as a free action. They're saying you can cast any of the powers. I mean, it does say she know from her mystery.
From the mystery. It does say specifically the mystery.
Yeah. I mean, when I originally read this, I thought it was like you could then take the powers normally. I mean, but you do have access to them still.
Yes, one of the powers she knows from her mystery. So I guess what you're saying is if you learn another spell that's on that mystery list, another power on the mystery list, that would still apply, but it has to be a mystery, a power that's on the list.
Yeah, it has to be a mystery power. I guess I'm just confused now. When I originally thought is that you could take, even you select the 2 new ones, but if they were already on the normal Oracle list, it would still count. I guess not. So that's one I'm not sure about. I think that would be a GM call. Do you get what I'm saying, Carl? Like, because you choose the new powers initially, right, from the mystery list. But then, like, say if there was a dispel and barrier also on that mystery list, but you didn't choose those initially, but you can choose them normally with the Oracle spell list, power list. Well, then they still count to the free action. It does say of the powers she knows from her mystery. So I don't know. That seems a little nebulous because it's still on your mystery. You're still taking it. It's just not with the initial selection.
Yeah, I guess I would assume, again, just reading it says knows from her mystery, and if I go to the mystery and it lists 4 spells or 4 powers, and they know one of those 4 powers, then technically they should be able to use that as a limited free action. It doesn't say the initial 2 that you chose. It doesn't say that, right? So
yeah, exactly. That was my initial read too. I just like reading it now again. It just kind of had hiccups. So yeah, so if you're playing it that way, they have access to the most free action spells. The witch can kind of compete, but that witch I'd have to spend a lot of edges. So this is one edge that gives you potentially at least 2, which is also a cool thing about it. Unlike the witch has the ability to take an edge to give them access to 2 powers, but they don't actually give you the powers. You know that because the mystery gives you 2, you're going to have at least 2. So this is a huge edge that's only unique to 2 of the casters in the game. And like I said, free action casting is extremely, extremely impactful depending on the power.
And it's only seasoned.
So this is a really good one.
And it's seasoned.
And it's only seasoned.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Why would you not take that? So
you would be crazy not to.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll get into more of the nitty gritty when we actually get into the mysteries. Finally, for veteran, we have divine mastery. This is the epic power modifiers. So like all the other kind of main casters, they get access to their epic casting mods, which we know is one of the best edges in the game. It's hugely impactful on your casting. It feels good, right? We've talked about it before. It kind of feels like you have a progression, and they're extremely impactful. So again, solid. Oracle's the main caster class, so it's expected. And then finally, Greater Revelation. They get access to the Greater Revelation associated with the mystery, which is a special like power that's associated with their mystery. Now, I do want to point out something though.
Okay.
When I originally talked in the last video about the APG, I said all we saw with the Cavalier and we saw with the Inquisitor, which are like martial ones, they have access to like more than just the normal 4. They have like 5 or 6, right? And a lot of the old class edges from the original book, like got extra class edges in this, and they got legendary edges. The Oracle itself actually has the least amount of edges available to it. And even like, there's also like the Rogue, right, they got an extra edge in this book. And they got a legendary edge too. But there's also stuff like, there's like 2 or 3 prestige classes that you have to have sneak attack for. So those are basically rogue edges too, right? But the Oracle just has this, like you choose your curse and your mystery, and that's it. Like those are, to me, not really an edge choice. You know what I mean? When we look at the Witch on a different video, you'll see that they can choose like a bunch of different stuff at each rank. So they have access to like a ton of different stuff. But like while the Oracle is kind of the most customizable as far as flavor, it actually has the least amount of edges. Just something to consider, but it's not really that much of a hindrance because it's so cool what it does. So just
and they feel like they'd be the ones you're going to take anyway. So
yes, all of these you would definitely take. There's
Yeah.
no wasted edges here, but it doesn't have any of the like. I believe it doesn't have any of the special legendary edges because that would be in the actual class thing already. So yeah, it doesn't even get like a legendary edge. It's like at least needs at least 2 edges, right? The sorcerer got that, the wizard got that, all the other ones got that. So just an FYI, like the oracle doesn't, and the oracle doesn't have any special prestige classes. All right, that was a lot just into the initial one. Now we really get into the meat of it. So first thing we're going to talk about is the curses. And again, the curses are the kind of feedback that they got from whatever, dipping their toes into celestial goo.
The price they have to pay for...
The price they have to pay,
yeah. So there's... Go ahead.
Yeah, go on. I was going to say, again, it's like they're pretty much a wash when we come to like mechanically to balance, right? Some I think are more intense than other ones, but generally they're pretty much a wash. What were you going to say, Carl?
I was actually going to say that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
that they're balanced out. So fair enough. Great minds. So should we start going through them?
Let's start going through them.
All right, I'll kick it off with clouded vision.
Okay.
So for clouded vision, basically it makes them, for the most part, blind. They can't make out anything beyond 5 inches, 10 yards. And there's a couple edges they can't take. So they can't take bad eyes or blind hindrances anyway. But in return, so that balance out is blind sense, which they can perceive their environment using supernatural senses. So their other senses are keener now. So they ignore invisibility, illusion, and all illumination penalties up to 5 inches, which is 10 yards. So
yeah.
You don't see so well, but then you can ignore some of those things that would fool vision for someone who had vision, right?
Yeah. I think this is the strongest ability I think out of all of them.
Okay, interesting.
But okay, this is the weird one to me because so when they're not, so remember they can't see anything beyond 5 inches and they see everything within 5 inches, right? And let's actually talk about the blind hindrance and the bad eyes hindrance. These are I think playing a blind character is extremely, extremely difficult in a tabletop game, both in person and in over VTTs. Not because you can't like necessarily role play it out, but it's one of those things where it's like involuntary metagaming, right? It's extremely hard to pretend that you don't actually see anything, right? That you know that something is over there, even though you're not supposed to know, right? So it's one of those things. It's not like anybody's fault. It's just a very hard thing to do. The blind hindrance itself kind of solves this in a smarter way, I think, because the blind hindrance is not the same thing as that, where you can't see anything. It just has a -6 to everything that would rely on vision, GM's call. So that's kind of a smart solution to me, where it's just like, well, I can do I can just do normal things, but if I have to do something, it's a -6, right? With the whole like over 5 inches, I don't see anything. So then it's like, well, then it is kind of I'm not saying that people can't do it. I'm just saying it is going to be a challenge to properly role play. Like, okay, well, even though I can see everything with 5 inches, how do I know that my friend's over there in trouble? Maybe they're yelling, but maybe they're not. Like, so there's just it is a very difficult. This is probably the hardest kind of hindrance of all the curses to play. And like I said, the blind one is just different, right? It's a -6 to everything. Bad eyes is you suffer a -1 to any trait roll depending on vision, or -2 to any hindrance. So I don't know how bad eyes and blind. But the thing with a blind is you actually get a free edge to make up with it because blind is so devastating. Where bad eyes is a lesser penalty. So yeah, and then as far as the blind sense goes, this is the best vision ability in the game. I mean, this is like I think they call it night vision, which is newly introduced, which it's basically like before with infravision and low light vision, it's combined. Originally we only had low light vision and dark vision. This is like everything, all illumination penalties without any type of, within 5 inches. But also ignoring invisibility and ignoring illusion. Like that part's crazy, Carl, because like ignoring invisibility, even with Detect Arcana, you're talking about you like can know somebody's there if they're like magically invisible, but you still take like a -4 penalty to hit them, right? This is just completely ignoring it. But ignoring illusions, that's also kind of like Detect Arcana, but still, that's like...
Well, you can't see it anyway.
Crazy. You're completely immune to illusions. Yeah. So An extremely powerful ability, positive, but I think a very hard thing to role play. What's your thoughts on that part of it?
Well, when you say role play, the it's
Or
mechanically super easy, right? Because it's literally as long as it's within 5 inches, you can see it. So you don't have to within, especially in a VTT, right? You can set visibility for 5 inches.
Sure, it does make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to try to play out. Obviously, the blind hindrance just has a negative, and that's mechanically easy to deal with. It's very consistent. Here, it's like I don't even have to worry about it as long as things are within 5 inches of me. Now, what does that do for spells or powers that have a range? I'm trying to.
You have to be within range.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to be within range, pretty much, unless the GM rules. Again, it says impossible for her to make out anything beyond 5 inches.
Right.
Now, which is weird because it's only talking about vision. It's not talking about hearing. Where like the blind hindrance specifically calls out having to do with sight. GM's call. So I don't know if this was meant to be like you just can't even hear anything. Like I don't think so because there's the deaf one that's coming up next. So yeah. It's definitely a challenge. And as far as VTTs, the only reason I said obviously not every GM has that all the vision all the time properly set up that, you only have that 5 inches in every
guilty.
single map.
I hardly ever use the vision stuff. Yep.
It's just, sometimes it's difficult to do and there's technical stuff, right? So there's always that problem. But yeah, that is a good point, Carl, that VTTs can make it easier, but can, right, is the important word there.
Yeah, can, not guaranteed.
But yeah, with powers, that's the big thing to consider. Like I said, this is one of the most powerful abilities because it just enables you to ignore everything as far as the curses go. But like you said, what does that do with ranges? I mean, Pathfinder has specific rules with you can't see somebody, but you know that they're there. You can still target them. So it's could you still? Again, there's no you take a negative, right? It just says you can't make anything out. So that's kind of unclear what it means. Or if you have telepathy, or you have puppet or something, can you not control their minds just because you can't see them? So I don't know.
Yeah, and things that have a range, you just you just let the player kind of they're going to metagame a little bit. And it's I'm just going to throw that burst template over there into the darkness. Just happens to be exactly where everybody is. So you'd have to. It would take a good player to not metagame this and make the hindrance not even a hindrance.
It's just kind of confusing. So my suggestion, if people are struggling with this, is just give them the blind hindrance, and they don't get an extra edge. They get the blind sense, right? So they have the blind hindrance for anything over 5 inches. I think could also be reasonable. Because remember, the blind hindrance is a major hindrance, and it gives you an edge. That's how bad it is. It's the worst hindrance in the game, pretty much. So I think, wouldn't that be fair that if this is something that you might think will maybe difficult, that I think just give them the blind hindrance over 5 inches, right?
I don't know, because you're going from not anything to -6, so it's not as bad, right? So.
But again, I guess about targeting. It's just kind of confusing, how you.
It goes back to
you can't target anybody, or
Sounds like one that you'll have to talk to your game master, or your game master should think about how this, the rules as written would work within their game. So yeah, I think we've hit this one
enough.
Yeah. So
okay. Okay, so moving on. Yeah, we took a long time on that one, but that one has the most out of any of the curses.
Yeah.
Moving on to deaf. You lose your ability to hear. She gains the hard of hearing major hindrance, and the hard of hearing major hindrance means you just can't you can't hear anything, and you fail all notice rolls that depend on being able to detect sound. So that one's a little bit more obviously easier to implement, I think. And the minor one is you subtract 4 for hearing, and this one you can't hear anything, and you just automatically fail. That one's easy to do, right? You just can't hear anything. Period. Full stop. Right. Anything involving hearing you can't be affected. But in its place, you get major detect arcana. Now, we got to talk about this now. This is going to be something we see repeated over and over again for Oracle, and it's also going to come up in some of the other things in the book, and especially ancestries. So when it's saying you get major detect arcana, that means it's an innate power. Now, originally innate powers, you'll see them in monster blocks. They're originally a rule for monster blocks. but they now show up in a lot of player options in the APG. So real quick, I'm going to go over what that
please
means.
do.
So yeah, an innate power is it's just something that you have that's an automatic activation. You activate it as an action, and it kind of follows all the powers like normal stuff like range and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't require any rolls at all, and when it's called a minor power, that means it's activated if it's a word you rolled a success, right? And if it's a major one, it's as if you rolled a raise. You get the raise effect for that power. Now, I talked about this. Remember, I talked about this with the Dispel Mystic Power in Inquisitor, that when it's an opposed power, you treat the minor version as if you got a 4. So if I had like an opposed power against you, Carl, and it was minor, then you as defending would have to roll over a 4, right? Or a 4 or over. And if I had the major version, it counts as an 8. So that just makes it really easy. And sometimes innate powers will have rolls that you need to roll something, but none of the player options, so it doesn't really matter. Now, duration, you do not need to spend any power points to maintain at all. You just can maintain it as much as you want. And you can't use any power modifiers. Now, when I was first looking at this book a while ago, I was a little bit confused about them. They don't talk about, does it cost power points to activate one of these? They don't actually say if it does it or not. They say maintaining powers doesn't cost any power points, which kind of makes you think, oh, maybe this will cost power points. And I looked it up and I saw what a lot of people said. And first of all, with monsters, right, Carl? A lot of times with innate powers, we don't have to worry about them having power points, and a lot of monsters will have innate powers and they don't have power points. And that's part of Savage Worlds' design of just give monsters stuff to do. We don't have to worry about that being the same balance as a player, right?
Yeah, just pick what they need to do and let them do it.
And they do it, yeah. Yep. And especially with innate powers, a lot of monsters won't have power points. But people on the couple different forums I looked at, people were saying, but players probably should. And some people were saying, well, Savage Worlds is one of those things where if it doesn't say it does something, then it doesn't do those things. But people were like, it feels like players should be able to do it. But I'm here to say, I think I'm 99.9% sure that you do not have to spend any power points to activate a power, because besides this, the other place we see innate powers is with the ancestries, notably tieflings and Aasimars. And when you play as an ancestry, there's no guarantee that you have any power points, right? Unlike the cantrips, like the gnomes, who get the cantrip of a power and get 1 power point to use the cantrip system, they don't say tieflings get any power points. They don't say Aasimars get any power points. This leads me to believe that just like monsters, it does not cost any power points to activate an innate power. Basically, this is a power that you have that's on tap whenever you want it. Especially with the curses itself, it doesn't say it's once per encounter. It just says you have the innate power of Major Detect Arcana, self only, right? Now there is one more caveat, and you can maintain it for as long as you want, right? You don't have to spend power points. You can maintain it indefinitely. But there's something really notable to bring up here, is that the drawback of this is that when you're maintaining powers, you do not recharge power points. Now, in Swayed, this is called out. In Savage Pathfinder, this is not called out. But I looked it up, and I forgot, I think Mike, who was it? One of the developers officially answered and said that was not meant to be, and it's meant to be exactly like Swayed. So, officially, the drawback for innate power, if you're maintaining it, you do not recover power points. Okay? So that all makes sense, right? So I really dug into it. I really dealt with the activation of power points, so that's how you should rule it. Again, so that's how innate powers work. It's a very powerful and very cool option, and oracles are pretty much the only spellcaster to get it. And they get it better than a lot of the other ones. Now, as far as Detect Arcana, just really quickly, this enables you to detect all supernatural persons, objects, or effects in sight for 5 rounds, but obviously you can do it indefinitely. And with a raise, which remember, this is the Major Detect Arcana. With a raise, you know the type of enchantment as well, and it allows you to learn all the active powers and arcane abilities on creatures. And again, with a raise, you also know all of the weaknesses of that creature type. So not specific weaknesses, like if some specific creature had a specific weakness for whatever reason, like an individual. But as far as like vampires, you would know garlic or sunlight or whatever, or like silver for a werewolf. So. Oh yeah, and then it also allows you to ignore up to 4 points of penalties when attacking foes hidden by darkness or invisibility or anything similar. So kind of similar to Blind Sense, just not quite as good. You know where they are. So yeah, okay, that was a lot, Carl. But so yeah, so sort of a little bit of a debilitating curse, but I think the innate power is pretty good. I don't know. So to me, this is definitely like pretty equal, or maybe even a little bit to like the positive. What do you think?
I think having the ability to detect Arcana constantly will pay off a lot. I think in a lot of scenarios where magical traps, magical, like you said, going against creatures and knowing exactly information about them. So it's the fact you don't have to spend points on it and you can just do it is powerful. And it's very good. So, but I mean, not being able to hear, a game master can play with that real easy, right? So
that's it, Carl, right there. That's it. Yeah.
So yeah. Don't get separated from your group because those goblins will be sneaking up on you.
Yeah, like that's what you would do, right? Like you would definitely like, okay, well, I'm going to put some stuff in here where noise is the thing that we're using, and that person cannot benefit from that, right? You would definitely like play to that.
Yeah, I mean, if the hindrance isn't a hindrance, then what the fun of it is, right? Here? So yeah.
All right, that was a lot. Okay. All right. Yeah, moving on.
Okay, so for Haunted, this is, evil spirits follow the oracle around, causing mishaps, strange occurrences. So the mechanical thing here is if they try to retrieve a stored item in their gear, it will take an action. Unless it takes longer normally, it says. Items she drops land a D6 inches away in a random direction. So we just had a scenario in one of our games where somebody said, "Oh, I'm going to drop my axe so that I can pull out my guns." And it's like, well, in this case, it'd go flying away. Now the innate power is a minor fly. So we just talked about minor and major. However, this one also has the limitation where it's levitate up and down only. So interesting. I don't know. The mechanical disadvantage seems to be kind of not that terrible, to be honest, in my opinion, because if you're in the middle of combat looking for gear in your backpack or something, then you got other problems. You probably have your weapons out already, and so I don't know how. Well,
that's what I want to bring something up to you there then, because it's confusing to me because I thought it already takes an action to get something out of a backpack or something, right? It's not one of your free action readying. So would you think that then this would have to be an action to also ready a weapon or something? Because
well, it says from her
where it says from your gear. So what does that mean? Like that's so unspecific too. Like what does it mean from your gear? Like is that from a scabbard? Like I guess scabbard is gear. Like, so I had the same thought you did. Like, that is barely, I mean, really, it's almost a completely negligible hindrance, right?
Yeah.
But I think to make it anything worthwhile, you'd have to say, yes, even the readying of something would cost an action, right? Because even the dropping thing is not really, beyond, because if you have that, you're not going to be dropping your axe, and you're a caster anyways, right? So, I mean, I guess it'd be the game master to be like, I'm going to knock weapons out of your hand. I'm going to do call shots in your hand to knock weapons out of your hand to make it. But again, you're probably not using a weapon if you're an oracle,
right?
Unless you're being like the gish, right? Like I talked about.
Yeah. So it's I didn't think of it as much of a negative side, and then you get essentially levitate as your,
which is pretty limited, right? You can't even go forward. But when we're talking about a caster being able to just go up in the air, that's 12 inches at once. That means, we know how powerful flight can be. It's, maybe less so in Savage Worlds, but this is also Pathfinder. We don't have guns. So flying up 12 inches, while you make a good target for archers, you make a very bad target for melee characters, don't you? And so, yeah, I mean, so I think Haunted is maybe one of the ones that is like the least drawback and for what you get. Yeah. I don't know.
I agree. You get a lot more than the actual negatives. I mean, on paper they look like they're a good balance, but I think in an actual game, there wouldn't be that situation enough to make it really that negative, that much of a negative. So, all right. So I don't have to talk much more about that one.
All right. We're moving on to lame. You're wounded, a permanent wound on your leg. So you suffer -2 to your pace. And you cannot take the slow hindrance or the fleet-footed edge. So you can't, basically, there's nothing you can really do beyond like a power. You can do powers to make yourself faster, but you can't have the fleet-footed edge or you can't have the slow hindrance. And for the benefit, you ignore a point of fatigue penalty, and you do not suffer a pace reduction for wound penalties. So this one's very interesting. This one, again, I think is probably a little bit stronger on the positive side than the negative side. Pace is important, but you are, unless you're doing like a Gish build, which then you probably wouldn't take lame, right? If you're like a melee Gish.
Yeah.
If you're a range Gish, you probably would. I mean, I don't see that big as a problem, but for a caster, again, is -2 pace that bad? Like, not really. Like, it's something. It's certainly going to affect you because you do have your power ranges, and Oracle is a spirit-based spellcaster, a spirit-based arcane user versus a smart-based one. Remember, all power ranges are based on smart, so you might not have as good a smart as like a wizard does, but still, I don't know. It's not that bad, and the ignoring reduction for wound penalties on pace ones is not that big of a deal. The big one here is the 1 point of fatigue penalty. Because we know that what happens on a backlash is you get a fatigue penalty. So this one's pretty cool. I think it's thematic. It's easy to do. And again, the enduring stuff's not going to come up all the time. It's not, to me, it's not as fun as like having minor fly or major deck, like something like a special power that you can do on tap, right? But the ignoring a point of fatigue penalties, like it will come up enough, I get, to make up for the pace. So I don't know. It's a little bit on the positive edge to me, but it's kind of, what do you think?
I think it's a good balance. I mean, fatigue comes up in games, obviously not as often as wound penalties do. Yeah. I think it's pretty balanced. Personally, I think it's pretty balanced. Yeah. And mechanically, it's easy. There's not a lot to think about, and there's no metagaming. It's easy to deal with. So I don't know if I would take it though. I don't think that one would get me excited.
That's not the one you would take? Okay.
You might say it's kind of lame. But
no,
okay. Go ahead.
No, we just lost like 100 users, 100 viewers.
Yeah. Don't unsubscribe though, please. So let's talk about the next one then. So we've got wasting. This one's great. The Oracle body slowly begins rotting away. They get the ugly minor hindrance, and the flip side of it, they get immunity to disease.
Yeah.
So they're kind of diseased in a way, but they get immunity to disease. So pretty much a simple yin and yang on this one.
I mean, this one is the most direct evidence of it being completely one-to-one, because when we talk about race creation or ancestry creation from the original Savage Worlds, a minor hindrance is a -1 racial ability or whatever, and immunity to disease is a +1. So this, like, we can, there's no if, ands, abouts about it at all. It's exactly 1-to-1, right? A complete wash. And one of the things I want to talk about a little bit too with the curses is you can play with these flavors, right? Wasting doesn't have to be necessarily it's rotting away like undead style, like if you took the bones one. It could be more like you have like fungus, like, if you took nature, it could be like there's like weird gross fungus like growing in and out that makes you ugly, right? But because you become immune to disease, or you can really play with these things. They don't have to be like haunted. Doesn't have to be a ghost. It could be, if you chose the wind mystery, it could be like you just have random currents of wind, but you can also fly, right? Fly a tap. So you can play with these more than just what they say, and I would encourage you to do so. So it doesn't always have to be like, well, I want to do bones, so I kind of feel like I have to take wasting. It's like, no, you can come up with other flavor to fit that. I just wanted to make that, But
I mean, just like that's always the thing in Savage Worlds is. Trappings. You can retrap this stuff to your heart's content. So okay,
but within this case, they like give it a stronger flavor, right?
Yeah.
Like haunted, malevolent spirits follow the Oracle around. But again, it can be wind, right? It can be like if you're Flame Oracle, it could be like smoke, bursts of smoke constantly like knock stuff around or whatever, right? So I'm saying like don't get so hung up on these and make it like seems like there's a mystery that has to go with, because they don't have to.
Yep.
Anyways, okay. Our last curse, and I think the most kind of like the most flavorful in a way, is tongues. And you choose 2 following languages: Abyssal, Aklo, Aquan, Aran, Celestial, Ignon, Infernal, Oteran. Or, if you're not doing Savage Pathfinder, just pick your weird languages. These are supposed to be kind of the more rare languages. These are, we have Celestial, which is like the, angels and gods. You have the fiendish languages like Abyssal, and Infernal, and then you have basically the elemental languages. That's like Ignon, Aquan, Terran, and Oron. And then I believe Aklo, Pathfinder lore, I think Aklo is like hag speech, I think. or it's
I
like
have no idea.
it's one of those. I'm pretty sure it's hag speech, but I don't remember exactly. But yeah, so these are like the weird extraplanar languages. When you're in combat or stressful situations, you can only speak and understand those celestial those languages. So again, similar a little bit to the clouded vision of like metagaming. Like my player as a player, I can hear people speak to me, but as my character, I can't. But there's also ways around this. Is that like your other party members can choose like these languages as some languages they could know. And with Savage Pathfinder, when you get half your smarts in languages, so everybody's having at least 2 languages besides common, and they're like racial language probably. So this is one of those things that party members could easily get around it, but it's also kind of a funny, it's a funny one. It can be very disabilitating, but it's extremely easy just from the creation of the party for people to take one of these languages, and then you're golden, right? All they need is one of these languages that you pick, and you're golden. And then for the positive,
but that's kind of gaming it a little bit. But I mean,
it's a little bit gaming it. But I mean, if you have a wizard who starts with a D8 or D10 smarts, and they're like, yeah, I'm into obscure, like reading about obscure like tomes. So I want celestial, I want like Oklo, I want abyssal, right? So like again, it doesn't like even if you're not trying to game it, there's a good chance that somebody's going to know. One of your party members is probably going to know one of these languages at least. That's in my opinion.
And can translate in combat. So
yeah, translating combat or whatever. And for the positive is they get another innate power. They get the minor speak language power, which is self only, and they're not while they're under the effects of tongue. So out of combat, out of stress, basically they can speak any language. The major version, like the raise on that, enables you can like speak like slang and stuff. But this enables you to read, write, and basically converse with any language. So again, I mean, right there, like you can just speak any language, whatever you want. There's without any PowerPoints, whatever you want, right? You just become the ultimate translator.
And running across interesting different creatures in the world that you're making gets a little more boring, but it is what it is. This is Savage Pathfinder base, so I mean it's definitely geared towards that. I'm just thinking of a homebrew setting, and it's like, oh, it's not none of my creatures with their different languages. It's all that funny. So, all right.
Well, that's a good point, and I think that's something to like. We talked about in Savage Fantasy about like the lock unlock power, how we pretty much don't like the lock one, and that's always the case in these games where magic can like take over for like a skilled character, right. And I think languages is one of those things. And so, yeah, I think that's a good point. If you're not playing in Pathfinder, even if you are, I don't think it's unreasonable to be like, the speak language power, it's not around, And I think that does add a big element to your world of like mystery. And in this case, I think you would just have to be like, I don't know, maybe they just speak those languages, or maybe just get rid of this altogether, or just give them some other type of benefit, like touch telepathy or something. Right, like maybe touch telepathy, like they can read the emotions of anybody, like at will or something, like maybe like a minor empathy or whatever. I don't know, because that is a good point, Carl. And I think even if you're playing in Golarion, there is some of that mystery is just gone because people can just speak language. And there's the one character that like, there's always these options of like, I took this art, like in 2E, you can take like a linguist archetype and this and this and that. But then somebody could just cast that spell. Like it just seems like you are taking away kind of something from the game. So I think that's a really good point, Carl, to bring that up.
All right. Well, that is the curses. And, I could see people making their own custom curses too. And then
I wanted to bring that up too. I do feel like there's not enough curses here. I was going to say that there's more curses in the 1E game, I believe. I would have liked to see a little bit more curses because again, oracles get the least amount of edges out of any of the other class edges. So, but yeah, you said you can make up any of your curses. Okay, I just want to talk about one thing about the mysteries as we're getting into it before we start switching off again. So remember, with the mysteries is you can choose at the very beginning, and each of them are going to have deities of like Pathfinder deities that are that draw from this theme. But the big thing here is we're looking at the available powers and the greater revelation. And remember, with the available powers, you get to choose 2 of these from the get. And again, some of these are not on your normal list, and some of these are seasons, some of these are veteran. There's even heroic power in here. So you can when we're like kind of weighing the mysteries, right? Part of that's going to be like, like how are they rounding out your power list? You're getting higher ranked powers immediately, and we know that the seasoned edge of an oracle allows you to do them as a free action, right? And I think when we're looking at this and we're weighing the available powers, when we're talking about free action powers, the strength of a free action power pretty much overwhelmingly comes from combat powers that you're casting in combat, and generally powers that you're not really doing once. You're getting more value from those powers when you can cast them maybe once or twice, maybe even more than that. Or powers that you would cast that you would then want to do something else. So I think when we're looking at and like weighing these mysteries, when we're talking about the available powers, we're talking about the accessibility to powers that we don't have and hiring powers, and also what they give us as far as free actions. Because again, like you said, Carl, at the beginning, you would take all of those. There's no reason not to take that. It's such a powerful edge that we have to consider that is a strength of the mystery, is whether they're good free action powers or not. And then we're talking the greater revelation were those heroic ones. So I just wanted to make that up front. It's like as we're weighing it, Carl, that's something
right. And the greater revelation, you got to weigh in the sense that that's a heroic edge too. So some of these things, they look, oh wow, that's really valuable. But once you're to heroic, does it still have the same value? So
yeah, you might not even get to heroic. You might stop before you get to legendary. So yeah, that is always a good thing to consider as far as like value in things is when you're getting them, for sure.
Yep. So we start off with battle. The deities are Kaden.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about the deities. Kaden Kaelin is the drunk god. Gorham's like a strength god. Iomedae is like a light, she's like a holy, like Avenger goddess. And Rauvoeg is like I think he's the evil insect god. But yeah, we don't have to talk about.
I don't know anything about Savage Path or about Pathfinder's
Pathfinder. Yeah, so
gods.
We'll ignore the deities. Sorry.
All right, good. Thank God. So
again, 100 more subscribers.
Available powers are barrier, deflection, growth, shrink, and stun. And then the greater revelation. Once per encounter, as a limited action, the character can unleash an inspiring battle cry. Allies within 12 inches get +1 to their trait rolls for the next 5 rounds. So essentially, most of combat, because combat usually 5 rounds is a long time for a Savage Worlds combat in a lot of cases. So, what do you? So the powers are for the most part
all of those powers, but growth, shrink are on the normal Oracle list. So we're only getting kind of 1 there as far as that goes. Yeah, do you want to talk about? We'll talk about the validity of the free action. Well, okay, barrier and I believe growth, shrink are both seasoned powers. I believe.
Yeah, you should pull that up on your on your screen or something like that to be able to check that out.
I know barrier is seasoned and growth, shrink. I took a lot of clips from stuff, but I forgot to actually write down this stuff.
There's like a table right at the end of the powers that if you can pull that straight up.
Oh yeah, you're right. Power summaries. Oh, excellent. Yeah, that's a good idea. Oh yeah, growth, shrink is seasoned. Yeah, and so I was right. And stun is novice. So I didn't even need to look. I have it all encyclopedic knowledge of powers.
That's right, you do.
So barrier and growth, shrink are seasoned. So you are getting some very cool ones. I like growth, shrink. Barrier, one of my favorite powers in the game. Right. Deflection, an excellent defensive power, and stun is an excellent debuff. And we're talking about free actions. All of these are good. All of these are good in combat. Deflection, it's okay. It's one of the ones that you kind of, pump up once, probably. You're probably not going to be casting it more than once, unless you need, but it has the capability to do that. Barrier, again, probably only going to do it once, but still good flexibility to do it more than once. Stun, definitely can do it more than once into combat, right? Growth, shrink, definitely. With all the powers that are aspect, that are both buff and debuff, you're getting the most value as far as it. Now, growth, shrink isn't, to me, growth, shrink is mostly a buff power, even on the shrink side, depending on the situation. Growth is more of a buff power because you're getting all those pluses and stuff. But we just talked about, it still has the flexibility depending on the creature, right? If it's a really strong, big creature, shrinking it can be really good, right? Or growing a small one that's hard to hit but doesn't have necessarily good stats for combat, it's good to grow them. So I think here, you're getting your most value from growth and shrink and stun as far as the free action one, but all 4 of these are good free actions, right? I don't know if you agree with me on that, Carl, but
no, I agree.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then the battle cry, 12-inch +1 to roll. That's similar to the Cavalier, but it's everybody with 12 inches. 12 inches. That's a really good radius. That's huge. Again, 10 inches is the normal commander one. Bards don't get that big of a range. 12 inches is extremely big. +1 to all trait rolls, right?
All trait rolls.
All trait rolls. So to me, battle is, and again, I maybe I expected battle to be more about like, you yourself, this being an actual Gish one. I think often, I thought in Pathfinder it was more of a Gish type of thing where you could like be better with weapons or something. This is this to me, this is really the commander, right? This is leading to the commander part of the battle theme. It's not listening to you being good at battle necessarily. Like you're not getting smite, right? You're not getting like boost trait for like whatever. You're not getting warrior's gift. You're not getting a lot of the ones like deflection, yes. You growing probably, but the other ones aren't really in that theme. So this is really the commander theme. But I don't know. This is an easy A. This is by far an easy A. You're getting an extremely strong. You're getting 2 season powers. They're all good with the free action power. Your Greater Relation is pretty much good at all times, right? It's never not going to be good. So an A that pretty much applies to any situation that you're in.
Yep,
so
that's good.
By far, yeah. Okay.
We've got a lot of mysteries. So
a lot of mysteries. That's why we're only doing Oracle in this one video.
Yeah.
Moving on to Bones. This is the kind of necromantic one. We get Bolt, which is a power that's not available on the list.
Yeah.
Damage field, fear, and here drum roll, Carl.
Zombie, yeah.
Zombie. And we've talked about, I don't know in how many different times, about, in our custom rules or whatever, that when you want to be a necromancer, you want zombie right away, right?
Yep.
Now, in Savage Worlds and in Fantasy Companion, they introduced the summon undead power, which you can get at novice. But while they introduced new summon powers in the APG, they did not introduce a summon undead power. So zombie is still the go-to one for our necromancers. Now, this enables you from novice to get zombie. That's the only one in the game. You can't as a wizard if you choose necromancy. You can as like an evil. Well, there's not really evil clerics. You can't do it as a witch, right? This is the only way to get zombie from the novice. So to me, as far as starting a game from novice, Bones Oracle becomes really the only choice for me to be an actual necromancer, because I want zombie right away. I want that theme right away. I don't want to wait till veteran, right? Veteran.
Yeah, right.
So you're getting it right away. Now, as far as and I don't think and oracles don't get it. So you're getting a I think damage field I think is a season power. Let's see. Zombie we know is veteran. Yeah, damage field is season. See, again, I shouldn't doubt myself. As far as what's good for free action, I mean, Bolt is an amazing free action power, right?
It's really good, yeah.
Amazing. Damage field, probably you want your casting in combat. Fear, in my estimation, it's not the best debuff power, but it is good, really good against extras. Not so good against wild cards, but yeah, still not bad and good as a free action, right? And now zombie, to me, zombie is while you can do it in combat, certainly. To me, it's also really good out of combat. But still, if people die and you want to raise them up or there's corpses around in combat, then it doesn't hurt. So, I mean, a really strong, right? Really strong power list. And this is the only one to get Bolt, which is a really good go-to offensive power. Yeah. And being able to do it as a free action, like that's crazy. Moving on to Greater Revelation, Soul Siphon. As a limited action, you can make a faith roll against a target within your range smarts. So kind of sucks within range smarts, but what are you going to do? If you're successful, the target suffers energy drain. Now, energy drain, just to re-up all of our knowledge on it. Now, that can be also a touch attack or it can be at range, just so you know. So you can do it as a touch attack, which will give you a +2, but you have to obviously be within touch. The victim makes a resistance roll, which is usually vigor. It's going to be the targeted attribute. For a lot of the energy drain only targets vigors. Here we're able to target spirit or vigor. Yep. But some of the other ones in monsters might target a different attribute, right? It might target agility or it might target smarts. But generally, it's going to target vigor. But we have an option here of spirit or vigor. And so first you have to hit. So it does have some drawbacks to it, because first you actually have to you have to do a successful touch attack or an attack, and then they make a resistance roll, right? And there's no they take a minus if you got a raise or anything like that. You just have to successfully roll your die, and then they get to make a separate resistance roll. And what it does is it reduces the attribute 1 step. That's it. Not on a raise. It reduces it 2 steps. It just reduces it 1 step. But the big thing here is that if they were at a D4 on that attribute, then they become incapacitated. So it can make them incapacitated. Now with any other attribute, they just are incapacitated until they get healed or until 24 hours goes, then it goes up a die type.
Or
But
24
if you targeted vigor, then instead of just becoming instantly incapacitated, they have to actually make another vigor roll at the end of their turn. Again, if it's a minus D4, then it's D4 minus 2, right, at that point. And then they die. So there is an instant death ability here. But, and you have the option to choose Vigor of Spirit. But like I said, Carl, this one's just okay. I mean, it is kind of like an on-tap lower trait, right? And it has the added thing of being able to knock somebody out. But, it's Spirit and Vigor. Most creatures, I mean, pretty much all creatures are going to have at least a D6 in Spirit and Vigor, probably higher Vigor, right? And as I said, you not only have to successfully attack them, whether it's a touch attack or a ranged roll. Once you successfully attack them, then they get a resistance roll. And in case of Vigor, they're going to get another roll for them to actually, quote unquote, die. And there's no raise effects at all. So it's just okay, in my opinion. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I always have to compare this. It's a limited action, so it's an action.
Yeah.
Is this action worth spending an action on? And because of it takes multiple, for normal people with like a D6, your generic extra, right? It takes 2 successes to incapacitate them. They get a resistance roll. So would you want to rather spend that action on something else that's got a more likelihood of doing something that you wanted to do? I'd say yes. So it's kind of cool, but it's not cool enough to say that I would spend one of my actions on it to use it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an on-tap ability. So it's good as a fallback if you run out of power points. We know that oracles can do free action powers, so they could always do like a free action bolt or, and then cast this first, then do a free action fear or something, right? So there's some flexibility there, but generally I think it's not that good of an ability compared to all the other ones that we've seen for sure. And there's also things that are immune to it too. So all in all, I mean, it has some of the best available powers as far as we've seen is for free actions, and it's the only one to get zombie at novice. So I still have to, if you want to be a necromancer, you're still taking this, right?
Sure.
You're probably still taking this. And then, multi-class is a sorcerer, an undead sorcerer, or vice versa. But I would probably start with this first and then go undead sorcerer, Like then you have the ultimate necromancer build, in my opinion. You become full undead and you can do this. So I don't know. Great Revelation is, to me, almost is a C, just because, they're all kind of C abilities because they're on tap, but it's definitely like a C. But the power list brings it up to me for a B+. And if you're a necromancer, it's almost a go-to. That's my
it's good.
Where are you at it?
No, I think the Greater Revelation doesn't detract from the fact that you've got bolt, damage field, and zombie, in my opinion. So definitely up there. Okay. So we got flame then. This one's mine. Okay. So the available powers are burst, dark sight. Now burst is on the list. Environmental protection, and smite. Now this one, it's Greater Revelation lets you, as a limited action, assume one of the following 3 forms. Elemental, which is you can become a fire elemental for 10 rounds. Molten Skin, the Oracle gains immunity to fire and has a major damage field. We talked about major and minor, right? So it's a major damage field. And then Wings of Fire, the character manifests a pair of fiery wings for 10 minutes. This grants her flight. This is, other than I think this is a pretty cool one, personally. I like, I don't know.
Well, let's talk about the powers first.
Yeah, let's talk about the powers.
Yeah. So they're all novice powers.
Yeah, they're all novice powers. Not all of them are useful as that when we talked about the free action. Burst is already on your list. Was Smite on the list?
Smite is on the list, yeah.
Yeah.
I think all of them are on the list. All of them are on the list. And you don't get any ones over novice. To me, this is probably the weakest of the power list out of all of them. For sure. Because you already have access to them. As far as free action ones, what are we looking at here? We're looking at bursts and smite, pretty much. Now, smite, I want to point out, you would say, as a caster, smite might not be the best thing, but a really cool thing they added in the APG for Smite was the spiritual weapon ability. So you can kind of create like a little, basically for casters, you can use Smite to create like I forget what it's called, like a spiritual weapon from D&D, right? You can create a little thing that can attack as a free action every round. So, that makes it like you're probably going to cast Smite once, and you might cast Burst more than once. So obviously the big power here is Burst, right?
Yeah.
To cast it multiple times. But, I would have thought Flame would have been even more offensive than this. I would have expected maybe even a Blast or a Bolt here too, or maybe in place of Burst. It's weird to me that Burst is here like almost like a Dragon Breath. I just thought, to me, Fire would be the most... And it's cool they give them like a variety of things, but again, environmental protection, how often are you going to cast that in combat? Now, it is good if you're like, okay, you're coming upon a monster that is like a fire monster and you want to protect your party, then it's good to cast. But again, I mean, the real value here is that like something that like you might do more than once in a combat and like also like consistently across combats, right? Or consistently across like certain types of encounters where free action matters, And Vibrant Protection is not going to come up that much, and Dark Side's probably hardly ever going to come up in combat. So, to me, it's one of the weaker power lists, but it's still good that Burst is there.
Yeah, it's a weaker power list. The interesting part is the Greater Revelation. Now, the problem, again, is those are heroic. You don't get those till heroic, but that's what makes it interesting is that. So, do you want to wait around to get to heroic to have something interesting?
Something busy, yeah. And let's talk about that one, too, because I like this one because it is flexible because you have 3 options. I think that's really, really cool. And it has like, they're all kind of different. But let's actually dig into it a little bit. So you got to become a fire elemental, which is just okay because I mean, like, you are a caster. It is a good fallback, right? To be like, I'm out of power points. I'm low on power points. I want to bring some heat. Okay, now we lost 100 more subscribers. I want to bring the heat. Environmental's okay. I mean, it's defensive enough with the elemental ability, which allows you to, you're immune to fire damage. You ignore additional damage from called shots. You ignore 1 point of wound penalties. You don't breathe or eat. You're immune to disease and poison, but you can only heal by natural healing. The fire elemental itself has like it has actually pretty low like attributes. It has like D6 strength, D6 vigor. Your damage is like a D6 strength attack, and then you can do an automatic burn. You are size 4 large, so people are going to be easier to hit you, but you have SWAT. You have the environmental weakness to cold, so there is like drawbacks to being an elemental. Now, here's where I was confused by this. You do remain a wild card, but does it function like shape change? Like, can you still cast powers? Do you get the extra like in shape change? You don't gain the extra benefits of a large creature as far as your wound cap, right? They don't say that here. I would have to assume that you treat this as a shape change, Carl. I don't know. I don't know. Would you like? Because to me, it seems like you can't cast powers. You don't get the benefit of a wound cap. Again, I would have liked to see some more clarity here. And again, when I talk about it,
for sure.
While I love this book, I think it's one of the best books they've ever done as far as the mechanical stuff they've done. There's still these little bits where I just would have liked some more clarity, right? With some of these things. I just really would have loved it because I don't know.
I don't know how I would rule that. I'm not sure how I would rule that.
If you're elemental, if you get the extra wound cap and you are able to cast powers still, like if you're able to still cast powers, then this becomes a very, very, very good one. But if you're not able to, which is, I don't know, my feeling, right? Then it's not as good. It's just okay. Moving on to Molten Skin, because to me, like, okay, right? If Molten Skin is here and you get immunity to fire and you get the major damage field, like it kind of feels like if you could cast powers in elemental, then what Molten Skin becomes very weak, right? To me, the advantage of Molten Skin is you become immunity to fire, but you can still cast powers. Now, the major damage field here is very weird, Carl, because if we talk about damage field, there is no raise effect for damage field. It just does like the automatic 2d4 damage. That's what damage field does. There's no raise. It's the only power in I think that has no raise effect at all. So I don't know when they say major damage field. I'm going to assume that you would then get the damage mod. Well, the damage mod is a 2-point mod that changes it from 2d4 to 2d6. That was what I would rule as a GM. I don't know what you would rule, but there is no raise thing for that, right? Does that make sense to you? I don't know if that's what you would.
No, that would make sense to me because either that or it was an oversight on their side. But I think just a normal damage field, doesn't seem
punchy.
Punchy enough. Yeah, that's a good word. Punchy enough for a heroic greater revelation. So I would definitely say major. Yeah, let's use the damage modifier on this one. So, yep.
And then the Wings of Fire, this is probably the most useful one. I just find it weird that, like, because remember, this is once per encounter, right? So, and then you can fly for 10 minutes. So you could potentially carry this over to another compounder or, like, out of combat. Now, it doesn't say that this is where it's confusing about this, right? Does it end when your encounter ends? Or, like, it's also weird. It's also kind of a funny thing of, like, oh, you can have these, like, giant fire wings and fly, but only when you're in combat, right? Like, so it'd almost be one of those, like, you cheese it out, be like, okay, I really need to fly up to this cliff to get to this treasure chest. Okay, so let's, like, punch a goat in the face so it attacks us, and then I can like spawn my fire wings. You know what I mean? Like, it would put this, like, weird, like, I just find it weird of, like, I mean, I guess that's kind of a lot of these abilities, but that are, like, once per encounter, but, like, I don't know. The battle cry one makes more sense to me because it's like a battle cry. You're in combat. But as far as growing wings, again, and it lasts 10 minutes. Does that mean that you get it out of combat? Like, I don't know. It seems weird to me. I don't know. What you get what I'm saying?
I guess I would just let you use it. I mean, if you can,
like, I just.
but it only lasts 10 minutes, and you can't do it continuously. There has to be a time between. We have to just figure out how long between,
like, maybe once per hour or something.
Yeah,
like, I don't know. It just seems weird to me that it's like, it doesn't say it ends when the encounter ends, but then it doesn't say that, and then it lasts 10 minutes. So it just seems weird that, like, you'd be in combat and then okay, we were in combat for 40 seconds, right? Or whatever. We were in combat for 30 seconds, and okay, I have my flight for 9.5 minutes. Let's, like, do some utility stuff with my flight right now. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of a weird one. So again, I think Flame out of all of them has the most problems as far as, like, clarity's sake, right? But it is cool that they're all, besides flight, they're not the most impactful compared to other ones, but you do get the flexibility. So I don't know. What I'm saying, all in all, I think Flames it's kind of a B- for me, just because you don't get, like, some of the good powers that I think you would get. The flexibility is there, so I don't know. I give it a B. I think it's like a B level. It's not as much as I'd want from a Flame option.
I give it kind of a C plus.
Oh, okay.
Just because you got to wait for all the interesting stuff till Greater Revelation. So anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Okay, moving on to Heavens. We have Banish, Confusion, Divination, and Fly. So here, I mean, we're getting I think Divination is a heroic or veteran. Fly is veteran. Banish is seasoned, and Confusion is novice. So you're getting a bunch of powers. You're getting powers that are not on the list, right? Fly's not on the list. I think I think all the other ones are, but gotta go back up. Yeah, we know Fly is not. Divination. Oh, Divination is, yeah, but still. So we're getting some powers that are not on the list. We're getting powers that are veteran powers, right? And Divination is a seasoned. Oh, Divination is seasoned. Why did I think it was heroic? Anyways, okay. Anyways, we're getting a lot of higher rank powers, right? Which is cool. Here, again, Fly. I mean, it's a good defensive power in combat, but not all the time, right? Confusion is a really good one. Confusion is cheap. I used to, like, hate on Confusion in the old edition, but now it's like, I think it's one of the best debuff powers because it's so cheap, and what it does is really impactful. And it's more unique from tests now. So Confusion is, like, a real win here, I think, even though it's only a novice power. But, like, Banish is pretty circumstantial. Divination is not one that you'd want to take for your free action. So I think, getting Confusion and Fly is huge here. Like, those are very, very strong options. You're getting Fly immediately. Again, much like Zombie, going to be impactful for your whole career as a caster. And then Confusion is going to be something that you like to cast once or twice. I would remember in the last game that we did, I used Confusion a lot because it was kind of my only main debuff power, and it was very impactful when I did. I could do, like, cute swarms of enemies. So Heavens has a good list, but oh boy, Carl, I think this is one of the weirdest ones as far as it goes. But let's talk about the Greater Revelation, Mantle of Moonlight. So this is tied to. So I just want to say, so in Pathfinder 1E, all of the revelations had multiple abilities that were like so all of the mysteries had multiple revelations that you could choose from. And, so basically they use, like, on a single option to, like, bring over to influence them. And Heavens had like other ones. Heavens had like a cold attack. They had like flight ability. They had all these other ones, and they chose this one. So this one is you're immune to lycanthropy, and you can disrupt a lycanthrop's connection to the moon with a touch attack, which makes it like revert to its humanoid form. So, this is mostly a ribbon ability. Obviously here, like Carl would say, like play to your players, right? Throw in some werewolves if they take Heavens.
Yeah, but how many werewolves can you throw into a campaign?
Exactly, because it's weird. If this was like you're fighting a werewolf game, then this would be huge, right? But generally, this is a ribbon ability. But then the main mechanical thing here is once per encounter, you can make successful touch attack to force someone in and out of a rage, even if they cannot normally rage. So, forcing somebody out of a rage, mostly circumstantial. Here, what we're talking about is you can give the rage ability to somebody that's on a barbarian. That's it. Or you can help your barbarian get out of a rage if you need to for whatever reason. But here is you're kind of choosing a heroic edge to give somebody the rage ability, which is, okay. I think a lot of the other stuff is weird and seems kind of weak. You choosing an edge to then give somebody else an edge that costs you an action to give them that edge, and it only lasts, I guess it just lasts normally, but there's a lot of cost for you. So, if you're a really supportive player that wants to give the fighter the barbarian ability, but like they didn't take barbarian for some reason, I don't know. To me, it seems like if somebody doesn't want the rage ability, if somebody wanted the rage ability, they probably took barbarian as a multi-class. Because dipping for class edges is extremely impactful thing to do. And if somebody wanted that, like they built it into their character and it made sense, then I don't know. So this one's like probably the biggest miss out of all of them for me.
Yeah.
And like I said, they could have chose like there was ones like you could, like a freeze attack or, I guess there was already a levitation ability, but like, you could do like a phantasmal ability, like an otherworldly thing that like, increased damage. There was a lot of like different flavors. It's just interesting to me that they chose this one. I don't know, Carl. So what's your take on that?
This is not an interesting one to me. And I mean, other than, you got confusion and fly, but I mean, overall, the greater revelation, again, this is at heroic level. So at heroic level, you're, helping your buddy rage, or I don't know. It just not exciting to me in any shape or form. And again, with the worry about the moon howlers, you literally have to have that as part of the campaign, and unless you're running that kind of campaign, this is kind of meh. But then you got to wait till you get heroic before So by then you've already fought like a million of werewolves and stuff like that. So I don't know. It just doesn't hit me as something I would take, and I don't see a player taking it.
And it just seems like I said, if somebody wanted to, you have to spend the action and you had to take this heroic edge to give somebody the rage ability, and it's not like all the time, right? It's to me, I don't see it as a fair trade, and I really wish it had more to like gravity stuff into it, or cold, or like otherworldly things like that. That would have been cooler to me, but. They went with the Saloon. I actually can't remember the name of the goddess in Pathfinder, but this is very in line with that.
So we're going super long, so let's keep moving.
Okay,
Life is life on me. So available powers: healing, light darkness, relief, sanctuary. So we'll just stick at the powers here.
None of them are above above novice.
Yeah, they're all novice.
And I believe.
Is there any that they don't
get
have?
all of them.
Yeah, they don't. They have all of these, right? So.
Yes.
And
I think so.
And none of, I don't know. They don't really feel like super impactful in, doing a limited free action casting in an encounter.
I mean,
light dark maybe, but
Well, here's I say I think life oracles are the best casters, best healers in the game.
Yeah, for the healing part, I guess I should limited free action healing is pretty powerful. Yep.
I think light darkness and sanctuary. I really don't like sanctuary as a buff at all. But healing and relief, I think, could be huge. Now, if you're not a cleric, which oracles are not, then they don't have the ability to heal multiple people at once in a turn, right? Unless they do a multi-action penalty. Here, you could do healing twice, right? You could heal somebody as a free action and then heal somebody's action without a multi-action. Same with relief. So, it's not quite the cleric level. And if you chose, the only other way to get around this is they could choose the lore master prestige edge, and you can get a secret, so you could actually take the cleric thing out of that, or you could just multiclass as a cleric. But either way, yeah, I think healing and relief here are the big wins for sure. Yeah, you're not getting access to other higher rank powers and powers that are on the list, but it's definitely flexible enough where you can to me, I don't like playing healers because I don't like just doing that on my as the only thing. It's just not fun to me. But if I was going to play a healer, then I would probably be like, yeah, I want to do an Oracle one, because then I could do that as a free action, and then I can support somebody, or I can attack somebody, or I can test somebody. Like that to me makes healing more fun. So to me that's a big win, because healing and relief are good combat in powers, right? If somebody has those things, so I think that is a win here. But yeah, sorry, carry on to the greater relation.
No, fair point. So energy body, once per encounter, is a limited action. The hero can transform her body into pure life energy resembling a golden white fire elemental for 5 rounds. That gives them then the special ability
elemental. In the fire elemental one, you get all those pluses, like ignoring wounds and disease and poison, all those things.
Yeah, and gives off warm light that increases illumination within a medium blast template by 1 step up to normal light. And then this is nice. Undead starting their turn in the template suffer 2d4 damage. And the Oracle reduces the cost of healing by 1 when targeting somebody in this template. Not bad. This isn't bad at all. This is good stuff. I like.
Yeah.
And it has multiple uses. I mean, it's multifaceted. It's not like we had with the one above, Heavens, where it's just were creatures. I mean, you get light, you get special ability elemental, you get undead, attacking undead. You get a lot. So definitely like this one.
Oh, I love this one. I think it's so thematic. It's so cool. And like you said, it has 4 things, I guess, if you count the light, but 3 things that it really does. And compared to the fire elemental one, you gain the elemental trait, so you're getting kind of the best part of elemental, which is, and these are such strong edges when you think about it. Getting the elemental trait on yourself. Because then you can still cast all the powers. You can do all the normal things that you normally do. But you don't have any of the weaknesses of a fire elemental either. You're not large, so people are getting plus to hit you. You're not getting any weaknesses, right? You're just getting all the good defensive parts of elemental. That's when we're talking about balance, right? Points. In race creation, I think elemental is like an 8-point ability or something. Construct is it's like construct, which is like an 8-point ability, like undead too. So that's 8 points right there. But you're also getting the auto damage and the healing thing. And then also you see that this to me has the best meshing with the available powers, right? Because healing as a free action plus getting the cost of healing that are lessened in this range,
right.
So you could pop this off and then do healing as a free action, right? Because that's a limited action to do this. So I just think it has such good cohesion. And so to me, this is an A because, arguably clerics might be a little bit better, but I think you could argue that up to this point that cleric and oracle are kind of tied as far as the best quote unquote healers in the game.
I mean, life is definitely an A+ mystery to take.
Yeah, for sure.
If that's the direction you want to go, is healing and that sort of thing. So
yes,
cool.
But unlike the cleric, you're not you still have a good list to fall back on, right? As far as your other powers. Okay, so moving on to lore. Available powers are detect, conceal, arcana, speak language, locate, and time stop. So okay, here we go. So these have some of the worst powers in the game as far as combat ones. But Carl, we got time stop. We got time stop. We got which I believe that's the one I was talking about, a heroic power. Yeah, it's a heroic power. Yeah. You're getting a heroic power at novice. Now the drawback here is that's a 10 PowerPoint power, which is 2/3 of your PowerPoint pool starting out. So whether you would cast this all the time, but the cool thing also about time stop being a free action, which I don't know if it's really even good or not in combat, because the whole point of time stop is you're getting more actions.
I don't know if free action helps you.
Gives you an extra action, but do you really need that extra action?
I don't know.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to me, this is almost like yeah, you are getting an extra action doing time stop, but again, do you really need that? You're already getting like 3 or 4 actions or turns.
Yeah, you're getting 3 or 4 turns, not just actions.
So does that really action? Does the potency of getting free actions really apply here? I don't think so. So to me, you're getting time stop right away, which is cool because maybe you're not using it a lot at novice, but when you get more power points at seasoned and veteran, you're using it, right? So just on that alone is good, but as far as the other ones, right? I mean, these are almost pretty much useless. Okay, detect arcana, not useless in combat, right? Because you can use it like somebody's invisible, you can pop that up. So obviously here we're choosing detect arcana and time stop as far as our initial powers, and that's the ones that we want for the free action, right? But anyways, yeah, not the best list. But their greater revelation is they can choose a Benny to cast any power of their rank or lower, and it's maintained normally. This is identical to what the wizards get, I believe, at also heroic. So just completely in line with the wizard, which is an extremely powerful ability, right? It costs a Benny. You still have to do all the power points, but it's any single power in the game. So you have untold flexibility. So a very solid power. But lore to me, I don't know. It's a good revelation, but pretty weak on the powers. But I don't know. It's kind of balanced out to me to still be a B because you're getting time stop, which is a good power that you can use for your whole career. And the Great Revelation is a very good ability. So
just be careful not to piss everybody off when you're time stopping constantly and taking multiple turns, and everyone else is going, "Well, he's done already." Wait, I'm getting this boulder set up. Hold on. Let me get this boulder set up that falls on a guy when his turn starts. Or so. All right. Then we've got nature. So that available powers is Beast Friend, Elemental Manipulation, Shape Change, Summon Nature's Ally. And then I'll just say what the greater revelation is: you get fast regeneration. Unless you're incapacitated. Yeah. So what do you think of this one?
I mean, the available power list is, let's see. I mean, trying to think. I think, Summon Nature's Ally is not. You get Summon Monster and Summon Planar Ally and Summon Ally and Summon Zombie on Oracle. This is the only summon power they don't have access to. So whether that's a strength or not, I mean, it's cool as the theme, right? I think ultimately with Oracle, choose the theme that you ultimately want. We're just obviously on our deep dives, we go more into the mechanical advantages and disadvantages to kind of think about. But yeah, so do you really need that summon power? I don't know. You have all the other summon powers, but summon Nature's Ally is cool because you get like Fae and stuff. So it fits the theme. I don't know. None of these. I mean, okay. You're going to be summoning in combat. You're going to be shape changing in combat. Now, shape changing as a free action, I think, is huge here. The Druid does not even get that ability. The Druid is the best shape changer because for beasts, because they can do it at higher levels and for longer. So this would definitely be good as a solid multi-class with Druid, right? And completely in theme. I don't think a game master would bat the eye at this. That either way you would dip either way. Start as a Druid, dip into Oracle. They're both spirit-based casters, right? So to me, if I really want to if I want to do shape-changing builds, you have to basically go Druid and then go Oracle or vice versa. So that's how I would do it. So that to me is the big one here. If you want to be shape changing, then this is almost required to go along with Druid because you want to be able to do it. Shape change is a free action and then hit somebody, right? Without any multi-action penalties. So it's just okay.
Interesting.
Right?
I hadn't thought about it.
Most of these you get already. Beast Friend is pretty null. Now the Greater Revelation, right? Just to remind people, there's 2 types of regeneration, but fast regeneration, you get to make a vigor roll every round. And success heals a wound, and a raise heals an additional wound. But this drawback here is big, because normally regeneration allows you to regenerate from being incapacitated. It actually gets rid of incapacitated status, normally. Now, there's 2 other options in this book that gives you fast regeneration. Now, Alchemist, you can just straight out get it at the same level as a heroic thing. You can just get it for yourself, but it doesn't have the caveat of being incapacitated. So I don't know why, for some reason, the Alchemists get it better than you. I don't know why, Carl, they did that, because it's like, why would the strength of the Oracle somehow better than I don't know why. It doesn't quite make sense to me that you would give one thing a feature and then neuter a feature for the other thing. pretty much evenly. So it doesn't make sense to me. Now, summoners can also get it, but they have to spend 2 edges to actually get it on themselves, in different ways. So there's that, at least there's that, right? As far as you're comparing it, but summoners get it, but they don't have the drawback. So it's still an extremely powerful ability, but one of the best parts of Fast Regeneration is be able to come out from down, right?
Sure.
But still, very powerful. I think overall it's extremely thematic. Again, I think if you're talking about the available power list, I think Shape Change is the winner here if you want to do a Shape Change build. So it's kind of specific, but Greater Revelation is good, and that also goes into Shape Change build because then generally you're in melee. So to me, this is mostly as a part of a Shape Change build, this is A or even S. But generally, I think this is on the weaker side.
Yeah.
Because again, you're a caster, right? So, and you're actually a well-armored caster. So how much are you going to be in combat anyways? Unless you're doing shape change.
Yeah, so I thought this one was kind of not a great one, but I hadn't really considered the fact of, you want to do a shape-changing build, you might multi-class. Just on its own, standing alone, it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay.
Okay, Stone. I love the theme. So available powers: Barrier, Burrow, Create Pit, and Protection. Ooh, I love these ones. So you're getting 2 seasoned powers: Create Pit and Barrier. And Create Pit is a new one that was brought in that was like pretty much essential to Pathfinder, especially for the summoners. But I love it. I love Barrier. I love control powers. So I love Barrier. One of my favorite powers in the game. Create Pit is a really, really cool control power too. Burrow, another one of my favorites that I think is a low-key power that people don't appreciate as much as I think they should. Really good defensive power, really good mobile power, and then protection. I mean, this is probably one of the most solid lists, don't you think? As like just all around solid. Every single power is solid. Every single power is something you'd be casting in combat. With Create Pit maybe multiple times. So all these are solid. Personally, I would be like, I'm taking Barrier and Create Pit to get them immediately. And then I would just take Burrow and Protection as my 2 other picks. And then you're set, right? That's a good spread of powers, right? You got mobile power, you got 2 control powers that can be offensive, and you got a defensive power. That's right there is a solid starting list that's on theme with the flavors. So I love this one. And as far as what's on their list, I think Barrier's already on the list, but Create Pit is not. And I think that's pretty much it. All the other ones are. So not on that list, but still solid, right?
Oh, yeah. It's that free action for any of these is a powerful, useful thing. So for sure. Yeah.
And now here comes one of the coolest, but also kind of the weirdest ones is you get Steelbreaker skin. As a limited action, you harden your flesh for 5 rounds. So weapons that strike are damaged or destroyed. Okay. So anytime a melee or range weapon strikes the Oracle, it takes a 1d6 damage plus an additional d6 damage for every power point she spends, up to a max of 3. If this shatters the weapon, the Oracle takes no damage from that attack. This has no effect on natural weapons. So this one's a very, very weird one. The first thing we have to talk about is, let's just talk about when we were talking about breaking things, and we're talking about hardness. One thing to note is that things do not ace, right? So when we're talking about this damage, it's extremely low damage for a 1d6. And when we're talking about hardness levels, I really wish here they would have said like bolts and arrows are generally this hardness and weapons are generally this hardness or whatever, like metal weapons and then wood weapons are this. So we have to go from the object harness table, which is not very clear. Like 4 is rope and 6 is bow is the suggestions that they give. Then 8 is pole arm, which I would have to assume the wood part of a pole arm, and 10 is shield or longsword. So they give it to you. So generally, I think to be fair here, I mean, obviously we're talking about a weapon. Is it going to be a 10, right? And an arrow, what would you say an arrow would be? Like
well, it's wooden shaft, so
or a 6, maybe a 6, like combination of the metal and the wood, or something.
Yeah.
It is a wooden shaft, so that could be an 8. I don't know, but maybe a 6 to me feels right. So this is up to the GM, right? I mean, obviously we have a longsword there as like for any metal weapon, right? But so this is both a defensive power and an extremely powerful debuff if it goes off, right? But it's very inconsistent of whether it goes off or not.
Right.
Just a d6 damage is not enough. Because it can't ace.
Well, you'll have to spend a power point. You'll have to spend
because
some power
for a
points.
metal weapon, you can't get it at all, right? And if we're talking about a 6 being a bow, then that's only on a 6. And if 8, you can't get it at all. So you have to spend power points. And if you spend power points, it's extremely inconsistent, even with you spending power points, right? It's not like the other things that we've seen, like with Inquisitor doing it after the roll or something. It's like, okay, I spent 3 power points. That's 46, right? What's the average of 46? It's 13 damage, right? Oh no, sorry, is
well, average.
it's
So
14.
average of a D6 is 3.5. So.
Oh, but sorry, it's 7. Yeah, my bad. Oh no, it's 14. Sorry, I was right the first time. It's 14. 2 times 7 is 14, and then you would divide it by two, anyways, yeah. So I don't know. I'm getting confused. Anyways, so yeah, we're looking at here very inconsistent, and you're spending a lot of power points to do it.
Yeah.
And so really to get any value from it, like even the defensive part is it has to shatter. That's the bad part about it.
Yeah.
So the constant D6 is not doing anything for you. It costs an action to do it, and you have to spend a lot of power points to not like absolutely ensure you're getting any benefit from it. So this is actually pretty bad. Well, I think it's extremely thematic. It's actually pretty bad. What was your thought?
And it's a limited action, so you have to spend an action to do it.
Yeah.
Too right. So.
Yeah.
I mechanically, it's not great. So, but like you said, thematically, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of cool, but from the mechanical side of it, it doesn't offer a ton. Again, I go back to this is heroic. This is at heroic level that you get this. I definitely think the damage should be higher. Instead of a D6, maybe it should have been at least a D8 or something like that. But.
Or start at 2d6 or something like.
Yeah. Or start at 2d6. Yeah.
That's how I would change it. Now I do want to point one thing out here. In this very book, for half orcs, for some reason it's not in the background edges where all the other ancestry edges. They put this in the weird edge. There's an edge called Smash. Now it's a novice edge, but it's a strength D10. So I don't know, weird. I mean, hard for the Oracle, but it enables you to ace it says the character can ace melee damage rolls when attempting to destroy inanimate objects. So I guess I saw this originally. I thought it was a cool build with that, but I guess it's not a melee damage attack. But I mean, if you were a game master, I would allow the half orc to have this. I don't know. Would you allow them to use this ability or not?
In combat, probably not. But outside of combat, you want to destroy a door or knock down a barrier or,
Well, no, this is an in-combat ability. Like, the Smash normally is like you could try to break a shield and you would be able to ace on your damage die. I just meant that in the language it says melee damage. So I guess that would not apply to Oracle. I thought it might have been a cool workaround, but yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, I misunderstood you. I wasn't familiar with that edge.
I thought it was a cool thing that upped it, but then I read that it says melee damage, so... I don't know. Anyway, sorry guys. But yes, overall Stone, one of the best known power lists, but probably honestly, even weaker than the Heavens one as is. Right? I mean, because at least the Heaven ones give you something that you know is guaranteed to happen. You're giving somebody rage. So I would still definitely play Stone because I love the available power theme, but the Greater Revelation is a huge letdown here because it's just without being able to ace. This is hardly ever going to work.
But at the bottom, the lower ends of the campaign, it's the available powers, really make a heck of a lot of difference.
Exactly.
Heroic's out there, way out there.
It's true.
So
I still give it a B because of that.
Yeah, sure. Fair enough.
Okay, two more, Carl.
Am I up on this one? Okay.
Yes, you are.
All right. So waves, available powers, barrier. A favorite, environmental protection, havoc, and intangibility. Now, is havoc one that they get normally, or?
Let's see. Yep, havoc is one. Intangibility is not. What else was on there?
Environmental protection.
Yeah, that one's always on there. Yeah, and barrier. Yeah, so you're getting havoc. Oh no, sorry, havoc's on there. My bad. Oh, intangibility. Yeah, that's not on there. So that's the one that you're getting. You're getting intangibility.
So the overall, from a power standpoint, some good. Barrier's good. Havoc has got a little bit of fun to it. And I guess environmental protection is useful too in a lot of situations. So.
Sometimes. So not bad. Yeah. Now I want to point out intangibility is a veteran power. So this is one of the cool like veteran powers you can get early. I don't think intangibility is very good in combat though, right? Because you're not be able to hit, but you can't affect anything either. So not the most impactful thing in combat, but you are going to get it much earlier, right? And barrier too. So
yep.
But Havoc is definitely one you'd be casting all the time for sure.
Sure. Yep. Then Greater Revelation, once per day as an action. The Oracle may create a raging storm, stretches out a half mile in all directions, limits visibility to 24 inches, decreases the illumination level, lasts 5 rounds. That's not a long time. Can be extended for 5 rounds with a PowerPoint. And as a limited free action, the Oracle may focus part of the Tempest into a hailstorm that does 2d6 of damage in a large blast template. So they pull in the storm, and then they use it as an action, and then they use a limited free action to bring down the hail. Bring it down. It's just weird. Whenever I run into these ones that have, you can change the weather, they're always kind of weird. Very thematic, very interesting, but just kind of odd from a mechanical standpoint. And it only lasts 5 rounds. So I'm creating a huge storm in the last 5 rounds.
So this one's a combination of partly elemental manipulation, the weather megamod, which is a 5-point megamod, which they can, I believe it lasts an hour, but it takes 10 minutes. So this is much quicker version, and it's not. I don't think it's as big. It's a 5-mile radius for elemental manipulation, but it has all the. It's a stronger storm, right? It does. This is the weird. Okay, this one's so metal and thematic, but let's take a look at this. Like the biggest mechanical thing here you're getting is a free action, free blast, right? And with a large burst template. So blast, and within 24 inches. So blast is normally a 3-point power for 2d6 damage. And it costs another point for an area effect. So that's 4 power points. And you can do it as a free action every single turn, right? Which is pretty good. But there's no raise effect here. It's just, but it's also like, it's just automatic damage. You're also not rolling.
Right. So you have that free action for all 5 rounds.
Disadvantages.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's pretty powerful on its own. But, Carl, the big but here is that it's a once per day ability, and it has to be outside. You cannot do this inside. You cannot do your free blast inside, right? Because it has to be part of the Tempest. And that's the big drawback here. And the Tempest decreases illumination 1 level, which can be a debuff to enemies, but can certainly be a debuff to players if they don't have low light vision or something. And again, I don't know if that means like low light vision is like, it's kind of more for like darkness. Is this darkness, or is this like rain and mist? Like, I don't know.
Well, but, the way it describes it, it says decreases the illumination level 1 level. It doesn't say that it's through a particular environmental factor. It just says 1 level mechanically. Yeah.
But so as powerful as a free action blast that's automatically hits, 2d6 damage isn't huge, but it's a huge range, 24 inches. That it's once per day and that it only has to be outside, that can be deaf your players, definitely brings it down. Right, as far as like, oh my god, that's so strong. Still, I mean, a cool ability. It definitely feels heroic. Some of these have not felt heroic, but being able to cast a huge storm instantly, and that you can do like a lightning blast or hailstorm or whatever at your will, like that feels heroic to me. Right, it definitely feels heroic.
I agree,
but it's not something you can use all the time.
Yeah, and you can only, like you said, only once per day. So that's
and outside.
That's super restrictive. So you can be a super badass, but only 1 time a day.
1 time per day. But remember, we can always spend conviction to get it again. But how often are we getting conviction? I mean, a good power list. I think thematically, it's really, really cool. I think intangibility is a good one of mist form. Right, we got barriers like an ice wall. We have protection is like ice protection, I guess. So I think Waves is really good on the theme. It has definitely some good mechanics in there. It feels heroic. So for me, Waves I still give it like a B+. I give it like a B. It's in the B level for me, as far as like the other ones we've seen a bit stronger. Okay, what about you, Carl? Anything else to say? Or we should.
I think B is good. I think B is good. Yeah.
Final mystery: wind. We get deflection, fly, havoc, and elemental manipulation. So here we go. Another one that gets fly, right? Which is very impactful to get early on. Havoc, we know is good. Elemental Manipulation, I don't know. This one's just okay for me as a free action. Remember, it's only going to be free action for the initial casting. You don't get it as a free action for like all your, little things that you're doing with Elemental Manipulation. And Deflection, though. Deflection, again, really good. Really, really good here to have. And as a free actions can be really powerful.
Just bring it up quick. Yep.
Bring it up quick. Have it on. Do something else. So yeah, I mean, overall, it could be power list. You're getting Fly, which is not on the list, and you're getting it early. And, I'd be happy with Havoc or Deflection as far as free action. And then we're going on to Greater Revelation, Lightning Breath. As a limited action, the Oracle can breathe lightning. This function as minor burst. And you can spend 2 power points to make it a major burst. So this, again, functions like an innate power. It just works, right? There's no jumping out of the way because it functions as the power, right? There's no evasion rolls here. It just functions. Yep. But it's only a stream template, which, what cones in Savage Worlds aren't the best. They're very narrow cones, but they're long. So stream templates are kind of like a line, but they're wider, so it's not the best. But you know what, Carl? It's a
limited action.
At will.
Yeah.
It's a limited action, but it's an at will burst ability, right? And you can do it as a major burst, which means you get that damage increase. So it has the flexibility there. So it's good. I mean, Wind is solid. Wind is completely solid.
And you're breathing lightning. What's not to like about breathing lightning?
That's so bad. That is super badass. So Wind is definitely an A, right? It's just a solid one.
Yeah, it's good, solid. Yep.
Just completely solid.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so I think Oracle is up there as far as just a solid, extremely solid, strong caster. Very strong, very thematic. You can customize it. Again, as you can see, while we talked about a lot of things, remember, you choose one curse and one mystery, and that's it, and you're set. And then you get the one that just unlocks part of the mystery for one at seasons, and then you unlock the other one at heroic. So unlike Witch and unlike Alchemist and unlike Summoner, the other kind of casters in this book, where you have all these different options that you can pick from multiple times, there's not a lot of things to do as far as when you're going up, and it has the least amount of edges. So, but still, to me, I mean, again, I think they did we had a couple misses in there. I think overall, right, I think they did an amazing job as far as bringing the theme into Savage Worlds and having the mechanical strengths and having another divine caster that feels extremely different from a cleric, feels different from the druid, because the healing oracle is going to feel much different from the cleric, and the nature oracle is going to feel much different from the druid, right? Enough. So again, I mean, I've just been continually impressed by what they've done here.
Yeah, I think the Oracle is a great addition, and we've got a campaign that we're pulling together where clerics aren't as much of a thing, and so Oracle really can fill in that niche in an interesting, different way. Than
we have one of the players is choosing it because of that.
Than a cleric would be. I mean, clerics are they are what they are, and people know them, but Oracle is just different and interesting, and with the curses, it just adds. It just seems like it'd be a fun thing to play. It doesn't have as much customization like you meant, as you said, going up, but it's good, nice and solid. And I could see, someone who wants to have the ability to do that free casting and get a little extra. It'd be very good for them, and it's not too complicated to run, I think. So that somebody who's new to powers. They get a little power and they get a little theme to it, and they get to be able to be interesting in their own right without too much complexity overall.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, all right. Well, that's a look at the Oracle. We appreciate everybody sticking around with us. Again, if you stayed this long, you need to look at the bubbles and do the stuff. That includes basically subscribing and listening to the other content. Not all of it's this long, but man, when you want to deep dive, you have to deep dive. So I appreciate all the research Eric's done on this one. Definitely understands how all the linkages comes together. And so, thank you for that.
I have a murder board that you got off screen that you can't see with, the
lines going everywhere.
Strings. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, all right. Well, hey, thanks again for tuning in. We're Tabletop Tango. I'm Carl with Eric, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.
Happy gaming.